Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that in the 17th century, only professional bakers were permitted to bake gingerbread? Step into the kitchen as we see ancient Greeks and Egyptians use gingerbread in their cultural and religious ceremonies, from 992 AD for the treatment of upset stomachs, to a 67-foot-tall gingerbread house in a Minnesota mall that took 9 days to build and decorate. You can always break a piece of gingerbread in your palm and see if your wish comes true.
If you're listening to this, chances are you know that smell of cinnamon and molasses, that slightly sticky feeling of royal icing, and maybe the sound of someone accidentally cracking a roof beam on a little sugar house.
We've all been there.
We're doing a deep dive into a tradition that is far older, much weirder, and I think infinitely more fascinating than its modern festive form suggests. We're talking about the secret history of the gingerbread house.
It really is a perfect topic for this time of year. And get this, the tradition is so established that we even celebrate an official Gingerbread House Day every year on December 12th.
No way.
But what we think of as this, cozy holiday centerpiece is actually one of the world's most versatile and, well, often political treats.
Our mission today is to trace that journey for you. It's this truly global and unexpected path. We're starting with a simple root used as ancient medicine.
Right, and as a religious offering.
And tracing its path through medieval Europe as this prized high-status food, right up to the monumental constructions we see today.
It's just an unlikely story about a cookie that moved markets and, in some cases, dictated policy.
What's so amazing when you look at the sources is how little of this history actually begins in that snowy European village we all picture.
Not at all. If we go way back to the origins, the ginger plant itself is native to tropical Asia.
India and China, right?
Specifically India and China.
Yeah.
So its journey into global culture really began as a trade commodity, traveling these vast distances.
That is such a critical starting point, because the very first uses, they weren't about baking or shaping at all, were they?
Not even close. Ancient Egyptians and Greeks were using gingerbread and its ingredients in cultural and religious ceremonies.
A tool of ritual.
Exactly. It was a tool of ritual used to honor deities or mark important events, long before it was anything you dunk in milk.
And it was also medicine. That seems to be the key to its spread.
Yes. Perhaps most importantly, ginger has been prized for centuries in cooking, but in early Europe, it was specifically valued for its pharmaceutical properties.
To treat what?
Mostly to calm an upset stomach. And that's really how it arrived in Europe around the 10th century.
Okay, I have to pause on that. So the earliest European presence wasn't culinary. Not even ceremonial, but primarily pharmaceutical.
That's right.
So how did it pivot from being a stomach cure to this massive European craze?
Well, that pivot is tied to a single person. Our sources consistently point to an Armenian monk named Gregory of Nicopolis.
Gregory of Nicopolis.
He was a traveler, a very influential one. And in 992 AD, he settled in France. And crucially, he brought his favorite food with him. And that favorite food was gingerbread.
So you're saying one monk was basically the catalyst for an entire continent's new baking tradition.
Precisely. Gregory of Nicopolis didn't just bring the idea. He actually took the time to teach French Christians exactly how to make it and bake it.
So it wasn't just a recipe written down?
No, it was the transmission of sophisticated skill. And that moment, the systematic teaching of this technique, that's when the tradition truly begins its journey west and takes root in European culture.
And once it gets that foothold, it just explodes. We see European settlers eventually carrying that tradition across the Atlantic, introducing gingerbread to the Americas. But it's interesting that the first recorded recipe dates so late, to 1793. That tells you just how long this was passed down purely through craft and memory.
And that takes us perfectly from its functional sort of medicinal side into its development as high art.
And even politics.
And even political commentary. In the early days of its popularity in Europe, bakers started shaping the dough. Initially, they were shaped into images of Christian saints.
But it still had that religious link.
It did. But by the 16th century, the process took a serious turn towards artistry and, well, mass production.
We're talking about a big technological shift here. The dough wasn't just being cut with a knife anymore. It was being rolled and pressed into these incredible wooden molds.
And these weren't simple cookie cutters. These were intricately carved, often very large wooden blocks. They were works of art in themselves. And they would imprint these incredibly detailed decorative patterns onto the dough before it was baked. The quality of the carving really dictated the quality of the final gingerbread.
Meaning the woodcarver and the baker had to be in perfect sync.
Absolutely.
And all that detail, all that visibility, made it the perfect medium for public messaging, didn't it?
The perfect medium. The gingerbread often displayed the portrait of a new king, a religious symbol, or some other important image that the authorities wanted to get out there.
It was a form of edible propaganda.
Exactly. Or political commemoration. I mean, if you can't read the proclamation, you can at least look at the monarch's face molded into your treat.
And it was highly effective because these things were everywhere, sold cheaply at markets.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it just shows how valuable this skill became. The art of making gingerbread developed into such a specialized profession that it was formally recognized by these powerful professional baker guilds.
I love the history of the guilds. It just shows how seriously they took this seemingly humble craft.
Oh, absolutely. By the 17th century, these guilds became incredibly protectionist.
They made a strict rule, right?
A very strict rule. Only professional gingerbread bakers were permitted to bake gingerbread. It was literally a trade secret protected by law.
Think about what that means. If you were just a regular person caught baking gingerbread,
You could face penalties. You were undermining the established craft. The ingredient sourcing, the techniques, the pricing, it was all controlled by this small, powerful group.
but there were exceptions. The times when the public could bake it are really telling.
They are. They made two crucial exceptions to this rule: Christmas and Easter celebration.
And that's it.
That's it. Those were the only times the average citizen was allowed to get in on the fun, which is this massive historical clue as to why it became so linked with major festive holidays.
And the rest of the year, if you were at a European market, you'd see all these shapes being sold by the pros.
A huge variety. Detailed hearts, stars, soldiers, trumpets, all sorts of animals. They weren't just food, they were highly symbolic tokens.
Used for courtship, political signaling.
Religious observance, you name it.
Which brings us to the ultimate evolution of the gingerbread shape. The house. We have to focus on the decorated gingerbread cottage.
Yes. That specific tradition of actually constructing houses, it started relatively recently. We're talking the early 1800s and almost exclusively in Germany.
It's just hard to imagine a gingerbread house existing before a certain very famous literary work.
The connection is undeniable, isn't it? It was fashioned directly after the incredibly famous and frankly terrifying story of Hansel and Gretel.
Published by the Brothers Grimm in 1812.
And that tale is foundational. It's the story where the children, abandoned in the forest, discover the witch's cottage, which is famously made of bread and cake and sweets.
The power of that visual, an edible house that offers false safety, it just immediately captivated everyone's imagination.
It really did.
It's just so fascinating that we take a story about child abandonment and, cannibalism and transform that central terrifying image into a cozy holiday craft.
It just shows an incredible power of the holiday season to sort of sanitize and embrace cultural concepts.
And that merger happened fast.
Very fast. In the 19th century, German gingerbread, with its strong medieval baking tradition, it just converged with these established Christmas customs. This is the moment when the Bakers' Guilds transitioned from making flat saints and portraits to constructing those signature festive cottages.
And they weren't just slapping dough together. They started covering the structures with thick white frosting to look like snow.
The first mass application of icing for purely aesthetic purposes.
And then embellishing them with all the sweets and candy available. The scary fairy tale house was officially transformed into a symbol of holiday cheer and domestic warmth.
And for those of you who want to sound knowledgeable about this, the original German names are Lebkuchenhaus and Pfefferkuchenhaus.
Lebkuchenhaus, I like it.
And while different styles of gingerbread exist, soft versus hard, the most common type used for these load-bearing structures is a hard biscuit style. It offers that crucial structural integrity you need for architecture.
Structural integrity is key, whether you're building a cottage or an empire. And moving into the realm of royalty, we have to talk about the invention of the other most popular figure, the gingerbread man, because it has a very high-profile originator.
It does. We have to travel to Britain for this one. Queen Elizabeth I of Great Britain, renowned for her dramatic flair and political smarts, is believed to be responsible for the creation of the very first gingerbread men.
That is a stunning detail. We have a monarch using spiced cookies as a diplomatic tool.
She had them specially made as gifts to resemble visiting foreign dignitaries.
Can you imagine receiving a perfect, personalized, spiced cookie in your own image as a diplomatic offering?
It's brilliant. It instantly elevates the humble cookie back into a political commodity. It's a subtle flex of power and a sign of honor, all wrapped up in molasses.
A very clever way to memorialize a visit. Beyond royalty, though, there are so many other wonderful cultural traditions connected to gingerbread.
Absolutely. They really show how deeply ingrained it is across Europe, going all the way back to those early ritualistic uses.
Do you have a favorite?
I do. One of my favorites is this fun cultural tradition from Sweden. If you have a gingerbread cookie, you put it in your palm, you make a wish,
Okay.
and then you try to break it with the heel of your other hand.
The ultimate test of fate and cookie quality.
And if that gingerbread breaks into exactly 3 pieces, not 2, not 4, your wish will come true.
I love that. It introduces this element of chance and ritual right back into the cookie, connecting the modern day all the way back to its ancient roots.
Exactly.
So fast forwarding from kings and ancient monks to the modern era, the love for gingerbread has just scaled up, literally.
Oh, yes. We can't end this discussion without mentioning the drive toward monumentalism that seems to define American culture.
We're talking about the world's largest gingerbread house.
Built in 2001, not in some ancient European village square, but right here in the United States at the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota.
The sheer scale of this thing is just mind-boggling. It stood 67 feet tall.
67 feet. It would utterly dwarf any typical table centerpiece. And this was not an easy bake. It took 9 full days of dedicated construction work to assemble.
And the material list, it just reads like a child's ultimate fantasy.
It does. For the decoration alone, they used industrial quantities of candy. We're talking about 1,800 full-sized Hershey bars,
1,800?
1,200 feet of Twizzlers, 100 pounds of Tootsie Rolls, 100 Whirly Pops, and just thousands upon thousands of other pieces of candy.
That is the American dream version of the Hansel and Gretel witch's house. It perfectly synthesizes the entire journey we've traced.
It really does. From a monk's preferred meal and a diplomatic gift from a queen.
To a 67-foot-tall, towering, sweet spectacle that just captures the imagination.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've seen a simple spice become medicine, then political art, then a key part of a terrifying fairy tale, and finally, a monumental construction. The history behind that little structure you might make this December is anything but simple.
It's a history of organization, materials, and structure. I mean, we spent all this time detailing the physical act of constructing and adorning a house made of sweets, a structure that is inherently organized, balanced, and prepared.
And in the process of researching all this, we found a fascinating parallel idea in the source material, which encourages us to think beyond the architecture and into the deeper principles of organization.
It shifts the focus from structural fun to organizational principles, what it means to establish a house of order. This concept is found in our sources, guiding those who wish to build a community or an organization.
The advice is to organize yourselves, prepare every needful thing, and establish a house of fasting, a house of faith, a house of learning, a house of glory, a house of order, a house of God.
It reminds us that whether you're building a gingerbread cottage or, building your own life or organization, the key elements remain the same. Preparation, structure, and order. It makes you wonder, beyond the sugar and the spice, how are you establishing a house of order in your own learning, your own preparation, and your daily life? What needful things are you preparing right now?
That is a fascinating and provocative thought to chew on as you start your own holiday or end-of-year planning.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for this day in His story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in His story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.